So this is Toolbox Talk number 3, and it's focusing mainly around electricity and the hazards and risks associated with it. So the aim of this is to remind and revise you about the hazards of electricity. So just remember that it's invisible, you can't hear it, you can't smell it, and it is potentially fatal. Okay, so you should never assume where there is electric that it is dead. Okay, so be it wire, be it an appliance, etc. You must always approach it and assume that it is a live circuit. Okay, until you've proven otherwise, or someone else has proven you that it is dead and it is safe to be around. So voltage on site should not exceed 110 volts. Okay, and only suitable equipment should be used, and by that we mean that all your equipment should have a pat test, and with a pat test will come a pat label, and on that label it will tell you what the reference is to that, and it'll also have a run out date. So check that against the date of the day, and if it's the wrong date, if it's gone past that date, then that piece of equipment should not be used. Okay, you need to then inform your supervisor. We'll get a pat tester down to it and we will recertify it, relabel it, or if it fails the test, then obviously it'll have to be quarantined, etc. Depending on the equipment will depend on how regularly it is pat tested. So the more heavy appliances, those that are used and use heavier currents, etc., need to be tested on a more regular basis. The lighter equipment then needs to be tested at a less regular interval. Before using a piece of equipment, then you should also carry out a visual inspection on it. So have a look at it, make sure that the housing of the equipment is not broken or cracked or damaged in any way. Obviously checking the label, check that the controls all work correctly, they don't stick, they're not broken, etc., and check for any emergency stops. And it's also worth actually carrying out an emergency stop on the actual appliance to make sure that that emergency stop does work. Any cables on site, so where possible, they must be suspended above head height. If that can't be done, then they should be routed around the corner of any walls and buildings, etc., so as not to form a hazard. And if that can't be done, then they must be covered so that they're not forming a trip hazard, and things like that as well. Proper connection blocks must be used as well when connecting equipment. And there should be no bare wires, and that includes the damage to the secondary insulation, damage to the primary insulation, anything like that. If that ever occurs, you ever encounter that, then again that piece of machinery or that cable needs to be taken out of action and quarantined. Okay, and you need to inform your supervisor or line manager. When using electrical sockets, again, use the sockets and any extension leads as they were intended, so don't be overloading them and then creating an extra hazard there with fire and heat and electrocution, etc. Anything that is blown, as in fuses, they must be replaced with a correctly rated fuse, so a 1-for-1 replacement, and don't be tempted to bodge them, because you start bodging them, then you start bypassing the system. Fuses, circuit breakers, etc. are there for your safety to stop you an electrical shock. Start bodging them and then something's going to happen. So that's the end of that Toolbox Talk. If you have any questions, fire them back to me or through the management system. Make sure now that you have signed off on all the relevant documentation and fire it back to your supervisor or